we need to talk about Chainlink. So hey everyone, welcome back to Upside Down Data. Today I want to talk about Link and where it might be heading next. So Link impressively rallied out of this range that it had been stuck in for more than a year, but now it's started to slow down and have to consolidate. So I think the question that we have is, does it need to spend more time consolidating, or can it resume its rally in short order? So let's go ahead and talk about it. So the first model that I want to talk about here to try to answer that question is our short-term upside downside potential indicator that we have. So this is a risk model. Higher values mean higher risk, lower values mean lower risk. And the reason I want to look at this model is that this was the model that let us nail the top on this run that Link went on. Link was ripping to the upside, and the reason why we were saying, and over on X I was saying this a lot, also said this over here on this channel, the reason we were saying that Link would probably need some time to cool off right around here was because we were seeing super high levels of short-term risk for Link. So basically in that shorter time frame, Link was really exhausting the plausible upside potential that it had. That's really what the UDPI is telling us. What is the relative upside potential versus downside potential that is plausible in the short term? And Link really did eat up about as much as it had, and now it's having to catch its breath. But the good news when we look at this is how much the short-term risk for Link has been cooling off. Just look at how far it has already fallen. It had been up above 4.61 was the highest reading there, and now it's all the way down at 1.15. So it's falling off quite rapidly, which is a good sign. And that's what you want to see. If you look in the past, when the short-term UDPI gets quite elevated for Link, when you see it come down and reset, form a low that's oftentimes down below the zero level, might be a target we're looking for here next, you'll see that it can set that base, which then allows for the next rally, set the base, allow for the next rally, so on and so forth, even coming off of really high risk levels. Set the base, go on higher. And so what we might be looking for Link is something similar to happen. Now, this could happen either, I think, if Link just continues to consolidate here, or if it corrects. But really what it might just be doing is giving an opportunity, and especially anyone who is sidelined, if it dips back down and then sets one of these bottoms and then starts moving back to the upside, that's just a great opportunity to buy the dip. Or anyone who sold out here at the top right when the UDPI was flashing this high risk level, to reload and then maybe ride that next wave up. So obviously not financial advice, you should make your own opinions. That's one of the things that I'm going to be watching is, where does short-term risk find its bottom, set that base, especially can it fall below zero, where oftentimes these resets happen even in full-on bull markets that can then set that stage for the next leg up. One of the things I'm going to be closely watching. Now, something else I'm going to be watching for in the shorter term for that kind of reset before we might think that Link's going to move off to the upside is looking at our trend confidence indicator, or TCI. So this is a model that's looking at trend, as its name implies. And really what it's doing is that when you look at the TCI, and if you see it starting to move up, that is a bullish sign, especially if it's moving up along with price. That means that you can be relatively confident in that trend continuing. But then if you see the TCI start to trend down, that's a warning sign, might suggest that that uptrend is at its end and you're likely to be entering a period of downward movement. And so what we were seeing with the TCI for Link here was it was putting in this uptrend. So all the way out of these lows that we were seeing back here in August, we saw high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, but now it's fallen off. Now it has decreased quite a bit, really falling off aggressively, even as price has not fallen off that quickly. And what that's just suggesting is that right now, this uptrend, the confidence is really waning in it. And what we might need to see is, again, more consolidation, maybe even more correction. And then you might see the TCI, like back in these places, find that bottom, find that base, and then start trending in the other way. And when you see that happen, like for example here, TCI trending down, but then the TCI starts trending up, setting in a higher low relative to here, even as price is setting in a lower low, that actually is a bullish sign and can lead to that positive move. So I'd like to see some of that happen with Link's TCI to think that it's immediately going to be shooting off to the upside. I'd like to see that play out. Now, it doesn't have to. You don't have to get a bullish divergence between the TCI and price, for example, like we saw here, before an uptrend can happen, but it could be an early sign that that is coming. And so certainly I'd like to see the TCI reverse course and start trending up at the very least before I think that Link can just rip up to the upside the same way it did down here. And the other thing that might point towards a link needing a little bit more time to cool off is our long-term upside downside potential indicator. So this is reactive to moves that play out over months to years, so much longer in its time preference. And what we're seeing here is that the long-term UDPI is getting quite elevated, as it has been quite elevated through here. And what that might just mean is that it also needs some time to cool off. And ideally, if you'd like to see Link go on some major run like we've seen in the past, then you probably want to see the long-term UDPI cool off a good amount to set the stage for that future upside. Again, nothing is anything is possible. There still is long-term upside potential that the model thinks is plausible that it could just continue to go. But I think it would be healthier for Link in a lot of ways if it continued to consolidate or even had a bit of a correction, let long-term risk cool off. That could then set that stage. And then that also might coincide with something like down the line, the TCI flipping bullish could set the stage for that move to the upside. But really, all of this is relatively short-term thinking. I mean, the long-term UDPI cooling off is a little bit more medium-term, but really thinking about the short-term UDPI, thinking about the TCI, these are shorter-term considerations. And one of the other models that we can look at for a more medium to long-term outlook is our forecast model. And this is giving you a probability that Link's price will be above where it is right now 6 months in the future. So you'll notice the forecast model will be really high through these bull markets, basically estimating that there's a high likelihood that the price will be higher in 6 months than it was back at the time when it was making the estimate. And that is very much bull market behavior. But then you'll notice that as we went into the bear market here, the forecast model really falling off. And as the crypto market more broadly was really topping out at the mid-November of 2021, look at how the forecast model was all the way down at 11, at 9, all the way down here, basically suggesting that the outlook was not good for Link. And indeed, then we went down into the bear market. But then as we got stuck in the range, the forecast model picked up and then sure enough got really bullish and then was basically predicting that a breakout to the upside was likely in the cards for Link. And that's indeed exactly what we saw. But notably, the forecast model has not fallen off with this breakout. In fact, it is extremely bullish. It's looking very similar to how it looked, for example, back here or really throughout this general time. Now, this doesn't guarantee that we're going to go on a massive rally like we saw back here, but certainly you'd much rather be at a point where the forecast model is, for example, up at 97 versus it being down at 0.09 or 97% chance of upside in 6 months versus only 9 or 8%. So this is a good sign, and that just might be another signal that we're seeing, not just with Link, but really with a lot of crypto assets, that the tides seem to be turning. And it might not just be clear sky immediately. There might be volatility, and there might be some pretty major volatility to come, but an uptrend might be the more reasonable expectation now, whereas really ever since late 2021, downtrend was the base case that made a lot of sense until we got through here. The tide started to change. We were talking about this, how throughout this time, it looked like things were starting to change. It was looking like an early bull market. We're now starting to see some of that follow through. So obviously not financial advice. You should make your own opinions. But that's my overall view of Link, is that it would not surprise me at all to see Link have to consolidate a bit more here. Nothing's guaranteed. Certainly Link could just rip off to the upside if it wants to, but it wouldn't surprise me short term if some more consolidation is needed, and maybe even a little bit longer than just immediate short term, maybe even a couple months of consolidation or even a little bit of correcting. But then when we look beyond that, 6 months and beyond, it still is looking like the posture is generally bullish. And so we don't know the exact course that Link might set from here, but this does suggest that up might be the dominant direction rather than down, which I think a lot of us who survived the bear market have a lot of PTSD, and it just feels weird to think that up is the logical direction, but that is what the forecast model is pointing at right now. So I'm going to be watching these models, see how they develop, see if short-term risk cools off, where it might find that local bottom, see if the TCI forms that local bottom. And then no matter what happens in that shorter term, can we see the long-term UDPI start trending down and then find a base lower down like it did back here, for example, to maybe set that stage to then realize some of that longer upside potential going forward in the coming months, to really realize some of that bullish potential that the forecast model thinks are there. Basically, the forecast model thinks conditions are bullish, and some of those things might set the stage for that bullishness to play out. So if you want to view our models and more, you can go over to our website, polaritydigital.io, and there's a live data from our models and more over there you can check out. And of course, if you like the content, remember to give the video a like, follow us on X, where we put a lot of updates, better indicators and more, and subscribe to the channel.